Cool.
We are live.
All right. Welcome to Southern Oregon Progressive or Populist Podcast. I'm Betsy Cunningham. And in the room is John, Zach, and what's your name? Oh, yeah, Max. Uh, so today we're going to just start the discussion about the No Kings rally. There was a big one in Roseburg. I think that there might have also been one in Elkton. I saw there was one there. There's actually two in Roseburg. But before we do that, Zach, John, Max, you want to introduce yourselves?
I'll
Hi.
go first. I'll go first. I'm John Hunter. I'm with Community Rights Douglas County. I'm also on the board of the Oregon Community Rights Network.
I'm Zach. I'm in the history department at the University of Oregon, involved with the Institute for Social Ecology and Community Rights Douglas County. Hello.
I'm Max. I'm um, owner of Frog Leg Studio down here, downtown Roseburg. Um, and Food Not Bombs is going pretty strong over here. We've got like a group that's helping a lot with that. Johnny and Jared and Vina and Sarai been pretty consistent, and that feels pretty cool. Anyway, just a little update on that. All right, the No Kings rally. I went to the one on Stewart Park, and a big crowd. Actually, it looked a whole lot larger than the one that we had had on in June, which is great. A lot of signs. There was some counter protesters. There weren't that many of them. Um, and then John, you were where? You were at there was another one that was been going, kind of a running protest that's been put on by a local group.
Yes, I was at the Shades of Blue one, which is at the original place we were holding them on Garden Valley there in front of BLM. And there was maybe, I'd say there was more people there than I expected there. Might have been about 50 to 75 people there, and they're more into doing visual displays. They had kind of a on the kind of little slope there in in front of BLM. They they made a graveyard of tombstones for all the for all the different uh, things that Trump has tried to kill in the government, freedom of speech, and this and that, and they had a woman standing there a morning in back of it. It was pretty well done. So yeah, that's what they did, and they, I thought it went. The reaction from the people were a lot more positive than when I was at the other ones. Maybe that's because the other yahoos went up to Salem. I don't know. So, but yeah, it was nice. I kind of wanted to go and check it out. And Susan, who's in our community rights group, told me she was going there, and she said, I'll have a chair for you if you come." So I couldn't, I pass up that offer. So
Right. That's cool. So Zach, you're in Eugene. Did you go to any demonstration up there?
I did not make it out to the No Kings rally in Eugene. I was working back end on communications for the UO Graduates Employees Union, running their social media these days. So mostly relaying images and video that people are sending me, getting it up online, doing the promotional work. So I it definitely felt that I was in the action because I'm doing all the back end work on what people are doing out there. But I was able to keep tabs on what's all going on around the country as it was happening. Um, and seeing what people are posting online from Roseburg, from Eugene, Portland, and much broader than that. From what I was seeing, there were even rallies held overseas. Um, there were a handful that I spotted popping up in Europe, which I think speaks to the understanding that some have out there that the MAGA movement and the Trump regime in the United States is uh, a global issue, very global issue, and on two levels. One, that the U.S. empire, as it's sometimes called, has its tentacles spread throughout the globe, and what happens in the United States has ripple effects directly and indirectly on virtually everyone else in every corner of the globe, and especially in places like Europe. But on the other hand, the development of the MAGA movement has emboldened fascistic parties in Europe that are gaining lots of traction. And I think people are very aware of the dangers of that are appearing pretty imminent in Europe. But the numbers, so I found in Eugene were something like
Yeah.
somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 people showed up downtown Eugene. A lot of different groups, unions. The SEIU was out there. Members of my union, the Graduate Teaching Fellows Federation, were out there co-hosting events. People were carrying banners and a lot of people in inflatable costumes, of course.
We had a few of those. So I'm
The first thing,
Melissa actually is just joining us, and so
oh,
Melissa was, I'm assuming, at
yeah,
the rally. I
exactly.
didn't see you there, but
He just popped in.
so, yeah, we're talking about the No King. So, and how many people up in Eugene? Because I would say 2,000 is not an off guess of what was on Stewart Park yesterday, because it really was longer than the first No Kings in June. And then the other, and that was the largest rally I've ever been into in the 35 years that I have lived in Douglas County. So as an activist all my life, I mean, I've been into more than 100,000 people in a rallies in downtown LA in my lifetime. Um, but I've never seen anything like this in the 35 years I've been involved in, on and off in political issues with Douglas County. So, even when we first started, I joked about, I was the first one. I was expecting the 30 usual suspects, as I call us, that show up to such things in Douglas County. Um, but I haven't even seen that big of a rally on the right, that many people showing up on the streets like that here. Um, so, anybody else?
Right.
Melissa, your take on yesterday, or
Yeah, I would just say I think the numbers that we got back, and I can't tell you who provided them, but the latest numbers that we had were 25 to 2,600 people. And I'm not sure if that's just including Stewart Parkway, or we know there were some people on Garden Valley. And we knew it was going to be a challenge to get people to move to a new space because we had been sort of entrenched in that space on Garden Valley for many, many months. But the safety team really put a lot of thought into why they did that move. And it was really because that stretch of Stewart Parkway, for the most part, only had two small intersections, as opposed to Garden Valley, especially in front of Fred Meyer, where at the first No Kings, we had somebody who actually got hit by a car on purpose. And that for us on the safety team was always a nightmare to try and kind of police that area. So the Stewart Parkway area presented much fewer hazards for us from a safety standpoint. I think a lot of us were kind of initially disappointed, like we love that space, but we recognize that from a safety standpoint that it just made more sense. And So I was actually surprisingly well, surprised that so many people were able to come because we had a certain number of signups, but we know that there's only a percentage of people who sign up for these events. It's usually about somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 to 12%. And so it was really kind of a struggle to try and get out information to folks that were moving to a different location, especially after really being in one place for a very long time. But I think it was wildly successful. I was safety captain for what was known as Zone One, which is closest to the hospital. So we were the ones with Ryan. Most of you know Ryan. We were pushing folks down, going, there's water, there's cupcakes that way. Keep going down, toward Red Robin that way. So I mean, it was definitely challenging, but it was a good challenge, right? I mean, it was a good problem to have, like to have more people. That's always a good problem.
Yeah, I think it was great. Anybody else have any comments about what went on here or Eugene or anywhere else?
Um, I didn't go to the one in Roseburg. I was just here at my shop. We did Food Not Bombs, but also I was at my kid's soccer game that was happening to it the same day. But like, um, my mom went to it. I was kind of surprised to see how many people were there, and I kind of wish I had been able to like table there because that'd be a good place to like try to get people organized and stuff. Um, Jared was there, I guess, telling people about what we're doing. And yeah, anyway, um, we had a good day at Food Not Bombs. Um, Jared's mom brought a bunch of rice and chicken and stuff, which, we tend to serve about like 20 to 35 or 40 people, you know, with whatever food or clothing or there's shoes and stuff that we put out. And it's, anyway, that's what we were doing that day, yesterday. Um, and actually today I just fixed up the beans and rice and or like made some beans and made some burritos and brought them down to the point and handed out like 10 burritos, I think, or something. It was pretty cool. So I've been wanting to do that more, like just to kind of build more camaraderie and get people, like build the trust and the kind of people really appreciate it when there's warm, ready to eat food that's like decent, and so, and that helps me because like it motivates me to help myself eat better too, because I'm being real lazy about the way I eat lately, even with this whole food not bombs thing. And anyway, so what I'm saying is self-care is community care, and we're doing a lot of that. We got a bunch of zines. Johnny went to Sacramento for the zine thing. Um, Anarchist Book Fair brought back a bunch of cool stuff. We figured out how to, automatically print zines here on the photocopier, and so that's easy now. We've been starting to recopy zines and put them out in the little box that I got from the Newsabia. And I got like 4 of those boxes, so I got to figure out where I'm going to put them. So we've got one of them on wheels. We're going to put it over by While Away Books. We're thinking to where people can pick up some literature from our little kiosk, that anytime it's free. Frogleg scene and stuff. Anyway, so what was on the agenda for what we're talking about today? I think
Actually, it was leading from the rally, the No Kings, the discussion about what we're going to do in Douglas County, because one
right.
of the things that these protests, and I have not gone to any of the smaller protests, the weekly protests, because I do think there is a kind of protest burnout. That things like that they become not really as effective as people may think. They may think that, yeah, there's a group of people that do the 30 people, but you tend to kind of discount the importance of the message or even pay attention to them because they become part of the scenery. So, just from my political organizing experience, I don't think those kind of ongoing protests with dwindling numbers of people is all that beneficial for the message. But I did go to the rally yesterday because I think that's a great opportunity to just show that force. And I do, and if this was the only force we could get and we were in Portland, I would say don't bother. But it's Roseburg, and we do bother because we are probably making people on the right very nervous because they, just like I've never seen this kind of outpouring in 35 years, neither have they. And so, and so it may indicate to them a tide that is turning that they're kind of blinded to because they all tend to be in that silo. But the other thing about protests, protests have been involved in every major movement in the United States in my life that changed. And my parents were very heavy duty anti-Vietnam War activists. And 100 and so thousand people in downtown LA marching against Dow Chemical and napalm and all these things. I mean, I've been in these when I was a kid, and I
Yeah.
know that hasn't, and the same with the civil rights movement that was going on at the same time. This mass mobilization of people does make sure the message is not just the usual suspects, as I mentioned, right? That do become discounted very, very quickly. So I think that is good. But I also think, and I've always said this from the very beginning, what else are you guys going to be doing? And so, as part of the Democratic Party early on, I attempted to get together a group of people. People signed up their names, but as the reality is, people who sign up their names, very few of them will actually follow through with actually doing something, even when you contact them. And so the problem is that people signed up. We had a few meetings, people don't show up. And so I only have so much time or energy, to be honest. And that's true with everyone, any organization, and without an organizational infrastructure. So it was kind of like, well, whatever comes out of this stuff. And then we have all these other things going on in Douglas County. We still have the Bigfoot Teamster strike, right? So we really, if we're talking about mass mobilization against capitalism, which is really what this debate is about, whether people want to admit it or not, then why aren't we en masse over there helping those Bigfoot Teamsters? Right? They're still out there on the picket line. They've already been locked out. Their jobs have been replaced. They do have pending cases against the NLRB, National Labor Relations Board. But if so, it's kind of like very superficial if all we do is protest for 1.5 hours, even if it's every week, right? It really
But
means
Betsy,
nothing.
Betsy, is the Democratic Party planning on doing anything in support of the strikers?
Well, we passed a resolution in support of
Right.
the strikers, and
Yes.
we've actually I think we passed a couple of resolutions on labor issues recently,
Yeah.
this year, since they happened. But
Right.
the capacity of, and I'm not talking about the Democratic Party because you're familiar enough with them that the people that are in the Democratic Party that are activists are very few, and they're pretty at capacity. And I'm really talking about the larger movement of people who sit on Facebook and say, I want to do something, or as my former colleague at HFU from Texas used to say, ain't that awful? She said this is what would happen in her family structure. Ain't that awful? But nobody would ever do anything about it.
Right.
you
I
know,
mean,
and I
I'm not as involved in Indivisible as I was, but I think this is definitely something that I would feel very comfortable going to them with and saying personally, as just a member of the group, I think we should do something. So I will be very comfortable going to them and saying, because I don't think people are aware that it's still going on. Because I was gone for 2 months, and when I came back, I was like, when I went to the store and I was thinking about my purchases. I was like, is the Bigfoot strike going on? And I just assumed it was. And so I didn't buy things that I knew the Bigfoot people distributed. Um, but that's just because I'm hyper conscious because I come from a union family. But I think, like I said, I'm not as involved in Indivisible as I used to be, but I would happily bring it to the group to see if there's something that maybe we can do. So I at the next meeting, I think I will be at the next meeting on Tuesday. I will try and remember to bring this up as a next step and a follow up to No Kings. And if you have any literature or any talking points or anything that you want to send me, send it to me.
Yeah.
But I think,
Well, I think what would be really good is if they did what they do well, organize a protest out there. And I'm talking about you need 50 people out there, and that's not a whole lot of people. And you need
no,
it. And unfortunately, they're out there. They don't necessarily want to coordinate it, just show up in a time frame. My take is I would do it after people get off work because of where it actually happens to be. But that would be a show of support. But the strikers are only out there from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. And so that's when they're there. And I'm not sure that's the best time frame for something to be organized in the larger community, but having people out there with signs, totally independent, something that's in supportive of the right to, the right to unionize would be good. But it's not just that. There are so many things that if you want to look at what the train wreck that's coming down the road, which I
right.
really do believe that the train wreck is here,
Yeah,
right? It just hasn't hit everything in its way yet.
yeah,
So I think that, the discussion for me needs to be broader. And I don't think, no offense, I don't think indivisible is necessarily a group, or I don't think any group I see existing right now. And my tendency is to see if there's just putting a call out. Maybe community rights would be better at it, but they don't really have an infrastructure um, to, do that kind of organizing either. That's one of the capacity issues. But I think that trying to find out one of the things that I don't know if folks caught the mayor of Chicago calling for a general strike yesterday.
yeah,
Did folks catch that?
yeah,
So, I believe that that is the power that we regular humans have. It's
yeah,
the same power that capitalists have the purse. We have the labor, we have the ability to economically cripple them. And I have long given up any hope the US would ever do a general labor strike. But given
yeah.
my background, I was raised around general labor strikes and what that
Same,
meant for
same
the
here.
power
And
power.
I'm right there with you that I don't have a lot of faith in us as a nation to be able to pull that off. But it doesn't mean we can't regionally do it.
That's
Um,
true.
It just happened
Absolutely.
here in the Pacific Northwest. Seattle,
yeah,
famously in the 1910s, was
yeah,
shut down by mostly dock workers.
yeah.
Yeah, I love those longshore. Lots of places in the world get shut down by the longshore
That's
of
right.
all units.
Absolutely.
They will wildcat strike. I mean, everyone else
Yep.
is kind of scared shitless and won't wildcat strike, but that's never stopped longshore that I've ever seen. And
No.
so, hooray for the longshore. They at least give us something to strive for.
Well,
Um,
for us, if we're thinking about general strikes or something along those lines, thinking in terms, as you said, Melissa, regionally is most useful for us.
mm,
Think of it even on the scale of, say, a city like Roseburg, shutting down the economy of Roseburg, shutting down the economy of the whole of Douglas County or most of Douglas County. That's a task that could be set.
If we had some kind of timber or lumber related strike, I mean, that would cripple Douglas County's economy immediately, wouldn't it? Or am I naive and think, because I mean,
So,
correct me if I'm wrong, I've only been here 2 years, so I don't know.
well, I don't know if you saw that strike that the Roseburg Forest, workers had that
There's all
last week. They got they got laid off from the plywood mill. And to me, what was interesting is they're saying that they think Roseburg Forest Products is pulling the same stunt on them that Bigfoot Beverage did, that they shut the mill down and then they're going to rehire all new non union workers, and break their union. So
Yeah.
so I think that's a possible, a connection there to try to tie in with too.
Has
That's a good
anyone
point.
reached out to them?
No, not that I know of, but that's
No,
a good point.
but I don't know who to contact or anything really, but
Yeah. Yeah.
As what you were saying, I think that's the best possible link right there. Is they have the most they are most directly affected, and it's the timber industry is also is awful powerful around here.
Do you think, John, do you think it would be good for community rights to have a labor rights subsection or subdivision, to have a labor rights subsection
Well,
of community rights? Or do you think that that doesn't fit with your overall goals? Because I mean, I'm not
well,
sure.
it would be something, be nice to have. Maybe we could start to build upon it. Zach and I have been talking. It's hard just
Yeah, because it's so much of the work falls to just you two.
yeah,
Just
but
just the two of you guys.
yeah, we are also trying to just continue with what we've been talking about, and
Yeah.
so, but it's worth discussing, and bringing up, and we could, you know, this is something we could think about. I was gonna bring it up. We got we Julian wants to do a international potluck benefit for Palestine, and we got Aaron from the Rainbow Kitchen uh, agreed to hosting that for free, and we're planning on doing that maybe November the 13th. Maybe we could use that connection there. We could develop some kind of a potluck for all the union people on strike there or something too.
Yeah, even if you just have a questionnaire, like, do you care about unions? Do you care about unions in Douglas County? Are you directly affected, or do you know someone who's directly affected by the Bigfoot beverage or the Roseburg product? We could develop a questionnaire in a way to try and recruit people, if we wanted to try and develop a labor rights division of community rights. And I would be happy to help out in any way that I can.
Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, like, I think Betsy and, everyone else that has spoken about this is absolutely 100% right on, that they are, it's kind of nickel and diming it away. Like it's, it's just, seeing what one group can do to break a union and then using those tactics on another union.
Yeah.
And so, anything we as the community can do to shore up our unions is going to be beneficial, not just for any particular union, but for labor rights across the board. So maybe John, you and I, or Zach, because Zach, you're the genius here. We can develop some kind of a questionnaire like, do you care about union rights? Are you aware of what's been happening with Bigfoot beverages? Are you aware of this? And then, if it's no, then, well, here's a big spiel about what's been happening with Bakewith Beverages? And if it's yes, well, here you can, next step is join us in supporting labor rights in Douglas County, something to that effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that I think any union in Douglas County is probably facing very tough times. And I think that even goes to the teachers, a union. And I know in some school districts, it's awful tough for them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and maybe Southern Oregon Progressive Podcast, if you guys want to work on that, is maybe have a show that is specifically about unions and reach out to some of the unions themselves. I did know that when I was doing the outreach to Bigfoot a few months ago, that the members there are very reluctant to commit to anything just because they're kind of gun shy of what the union has told them what not to do and what to do. So it really might be better to reach out to the business office of the unions themselves and talk to somebody a little bit higher on the food chain of the organization. And they may be willing to take us up on it and actually, show up and have a discussion. But you have teachers unions, not only the K through 12, UCC teachers are unionized, so they're clerical workers. The Department of Human Services is probably the largest union representative.
Yeah.
There is a union within the
Is that
federal workers.
SEIU?
Yes, they're SEIU. And actually, I do know their business agent, uh, Daniel Elash. You know him too, John Hunter. And so, Daniel may be willing, not representing the union, but certainly may we be willing to talk about that and actually the politics in the bigger scheme. So I'd be willing to reach out to Daniel specifically. But otherwise, we do have a list. I could probably give you of local unions that we knew, that we have here. And look through those and see. But I think reaching out to the Teamsters and then I think Roseburg Forest Products would probably be the the first steps. And I don't know, are there Teamsters in the drivers for Roseburg Forest Products Teamsters? Does anyone
I
know?
don't know.
I don't know either. Um,
That could be. I just don't know their
I guess
structure here.
I guess we could just ask the Teamsters
Yeah,
probably. I was gonna
yeah,
do a
yeah.
search,
They'll
but I
know.
thought, yeah, I don't know. But I mean, this might be kind of crazy, but I think maybe we can offer people some kind of anonymity with like face masks or something to say, if you want to speak off the record, but you still want to speak out. I know that is kind of ridiculous, but it's also like I totally understand people not wanting to put themselves out there, but maybe there's a way that we can figure out to facilitate some kind of anonymity to a certain perspective. And I'll ask my brother, who's kind of a computer guru who works for the University of Oregon, is there some kind of voice altering software that
Of
we
course
can
there
use?
is.
Yeah, right. I mean, something that we can use, and they
I
can
don't
they
know
can
how
learn.
stealthy I want to get. I was just talking
I
before
I
you
know,
joined
but I
about
think
I don't even want to edit these videos. So everything that goes out is live and uncensored. So
I
I'm not
I
sure
get
how
that, but I
just for
do.
my own case. I'm just not sure that's the format for me to worry too much about people. If people want to be anonymous. I don't know what to say about it. I mean, I can't, I don't know that it's helpful to feed into people's fears in that way when you're trying to talk about issues that need the credibility of somebody's name and face behind the issue. And so
That's
that's
a
what we're
that,
trying to, that's
that's
what
a
I'm
very
trying to
good.
achieve.
Yeah, that's a very good
Um,
point. That's a very good point. It's so much more helpful to have a face, to
yeah.
be able to put with the words. Yeah, that's so much. I think that's a great point, Betsy.
And
Yeah,
I don't want anybody to misconstrue. I'm not altruistic. That's not why I'm doing this. Yeah, I want to make change. I want to have things that are exposed out there that are pretty clear. And it might be tough with the Teamsters union folks to do that. And that's fine. we can talk from the third party perspective, but that's very limited about what we know. But I'm fine with sticking with that, at least for Southern Oregon Progressive
Yeah.
podcast. Um, so in the bigger scheme of what can we do about it, I am going to put out in the description of this on the live video of this, the link to a sign up sheet that's called Resist Douglas County, and it's a sign up sheet I use for the Democrats. I've actually modified it to be one that is not necessarily for the Democrats, but I'm going to tell you that if any organization like this um, and I'm not talking about SOPP, I'm talking about a resistance organization, would be foolish not to join with one of the two major political parties in a coalition. Since this is probably not going to get the Republicans, it really needs the Democrats because their database alone has an infrastructure that is way larger than anything that we can actually achieve on our own without paying out the cash to do it. And so, and the coalition, and honestly, even though Indivisible has always been the one on these resistance movement, it is the Democrats that people believe are
Yeah.
doing these protests anyway. And Andrew did one about this one weekend, this one that just happened, a little soundbite because we're starting to do better at social media, and I encouraged them to do that, right? And say that we're supporting Indivisible, but we need to get our face out there. And people, that's the other thing for what Indivisible can do is really be that kind of broadcast network for the larger community about these issues because of what happens, whether it's Southern Oregon progressive politics, whether it's actually there's a myriad of things that people could be involved in and pushing out issues, not just keeping it in that silo of the Indivisible group. And frankly, I do not go to the Indivisible page.
No,
So I don't even know
I
how much
100%.
traffic that gets.
No, I 100% agree. I think because Indivisible is so big, we kind of have a responsibility to actually address things that affect the local community, and that's kind of been my standpoint from the beginning is coalition building.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that a lot of our members recognize that that is, and they want that, and there's kind of it's kind of natural because when you have people who are, progressives or um, freedom inclined and anti-tyranny inclined, you're gonna be able to come to agreement on things. So I think coalition building is kind of a natural outpouring of indivisible, and that's something that I've talked with leadership about a great deal from the very beginning, and that's where my heart is. That's my actual like primary focus is coalition building, and so in order to address issues that actually affect people in our community because we obviously want to support the bigger um, federal agenda. But at the end of the day, we want to affect change locally, right? The whole point is to affect change locally. And we need to build relationships with partners in order to make that happen. And so anything you want to send me that you want me to bring to Indivisible, I will be happy to do so. I mean, I'm less involved than I used to be, but I'm still involved. And um, and it's a really I will tell you the core constituency, well, most everybody is pretty great. And people are looking for purpose, especially now. They're looking for purpose and ways to affect change against this authoritarian regime. So anything you send me, I'd be happy to present. And I think you're absolutely right. Like we got to put our money where our mouth is, and it's got to be more than once every 4 months that we have a protest. I don't think we should discount the power of these protests. I think they're incredibly powerful, but that's not where it stops. That's where it starts. Then we go on to how do we affect change locally, and we harness the power of the people to affect change locally.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing. There's some folks that I follow that are talking about doing other things. One is the economic boycott, right? That's the other end of the labor withdrawal. Nobody's going to care if I withdraw my labor because I'm retired and I probably do things that the other side doesn't like anyway. So they would they would just as soon, even for free, I quit doing it. But I do spend money from time to time, and really there's people that have, and you started to get a list of the boycott for Bigfoot, and there's also people that do this on a nationwide basis, right? And look at, where people are spending their money. And one of them that I watch, asserts that the financial possible bankruptcy of Target is actually associated with the economic boycott that has happened with them over the last 6 or so months after they caved into the diversity, kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And so I think that that's the thing that all of us can participate in some way is on that side of it. And, having maintained list of that kind of things and people not just doing it. Like when I told Bigfoot I wasn't going to buy their product, which crushed my husband, he was willing to do it, but he consumed some of their products.
I
And
consumed many of their products, and it's been killing me for these last 10 months or more that we've been boycotting it. But you know what? Fucking small sacrifice for workers'
no,
rights.
of
I
course, of
mean,
course,
we gotta like get our shit together and prioritize stuff. Like, if I can't have Pepsi, big whoop. If it means that people don't have labor rights, I
of
I
course.
don't
Well,
have
and a
time.
variety of other things. But the
Yes.
other thing is with boycotts is you have to tell them that you're not buying them, and it's a
Yeah.
good thing to tell them you used to buy their shit
Yes.
and that you're not going to anymore because of this. So that's also the other piece. That's pretty easy to set up for people to do. I mean, can letters, and it doesn't have to be long and sophisticated. You don't have to give them every reason why you're not going to do it because you're not going to persuade them. It's going to be the fact that enough people don't buy their shit, and that's all they
And
need
we
to know.
talked about having letter writing campaigns, and we need, now that I'm back, I totally want to do that. I want to get some postcards together where we can write and say, you know what, we're boycotting you because you're terrible, and you've tried to bust your union. And I think, I mean, especially because it's the cold, rainy winter months and people are going to spend a lot of time indoors. Now's the time for those postcard writing
Get them writing,
campaigns.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to chime in on this subject before we move on to whatever we said we were going to talk about?
In a boycott, a consumer boycott movement and a push for it, it is also important to stress in advocating for such a move that we can't allow such a move to only be understood by those who understand themselves to be participating in it, to be leading. We cannot allow for the understanding to merely be that one can stop consuming or consume something else and that's all. Um, Ultimately, a a movement for social justice, if you want to call it social progress, a transformation of our communities has to be beyond different modes of consumerism. I think a long-term goal that we have to keep in mind and reiterate when we push for things like boycotts is we are more than consumers, and changing our consuming habits is perhaps um, a part of the project, but ultimately we want people to be full citizens in the classic sense, to participate in politics, to participate in community organizations, to participate even in their neighborhoods to have better relations with their neighbors, not just saying, I'm not going to buy this or that.
Zach,
It's an important element.
would you call that community rights? Would you consider that community rights? How I'm trying to think of a way to phrase it that I can present it to people. Like if you want to enable or progress this, would it be community rights?
I don't think I would tie it to just a mere slogan, but a
Okay.
principle of slogans do a lot of slogans can do a lot of heavy lifting when they're simple ideas.
Yeah.
I'm more speaking of stressing that the direction we want to the direction in which we want to transform our society is not just making people different kinds of consumers,
Yeah.
but transforming each and every one of us into a real citizen, not just, a member of the community on paper, but an active agent in our communities.
Like a
And so I'd be like, don't just like boycott, but join our organizations. It
yeah.
gets back to say you brought up the community rights capacity issue. And it is community rights Douglas County is largely John.
Yeah.
And I'm along for the
And
ride and
you.
helping out how I
And
can.
you.
It's overwhelmingly John.
Right.
Well,
Uh,
and both of you.
but
I was gonna. Oh, go ahead.
the capacity issue is yes, is a problem. How would we start, say, a labor rights committee or labor rights caucus when we're, a couple or a handful of people, not all of whom even show up for every meeting? We need people to join organizations that do exist so that we have more people to actually populate, to create those kinds of committees.
Well, that's
It should
my
be
point
understood.
about trying to recruit people when we're in alternate spaces with with a questionnaire about have you been affected by anyone who's been on the strike? Do you care about labor rights? I know that's really simplistic and stuff like that, but I think we might be able to get some people on our side. Um, when we talk about do you care about labor rights? Most people will be like, "Yeah, I care about labor rights." Can you spend 5 hours a month, or 4 hours a month, an hour a week? We could make it something very simple. I think we have the ability to recruit people. I don't think we should diminish our capacity to be able to recruit people. That's all I'm saying. But I'm saying that from a very privileged position because you and John are doing all of the heavy lifting.
John's doing the heavy lifting.
Yes.
I'm doing very lightweight work. Uh,
No,
my
he's doing
mo
it.
But there's also a myriad of other organizations, right, that are pulling on the same kind of core group. And this is really a great discussion, but it's really a bigger discussion outside of here in this arena right now, as far as
Yeah.
how you build that capacity. And I think that you wanted to say something, Max, at one point.
Yeah, thanks. I was just thinking of all this in context of this effort that I wanted to put forth in downtown Roseburg, which I've talked to some people about, like Zach Weiss, who's on the city council, even, about just doing like a neighborhood council meeting. Even Zach here mentioned that a while ago, and I thought it's definitely a very good idea. And I think the only thing is it's difficult to imagine anybody, that many people showing up to a self-organized community, you know, meeting for a, neighborhood unless you market it in a certain way that is kind of like, hey, do you care about labor rights? Do you care about what your neighbors or, stability of our community and, other issues, homeless issues, whatever, like It all ties in, and so um, yeah, that was my next plan. Is like, and the next chance I get, I'm gonna talk to the library about, I don't know if I'm ready to like schedule a meeting. I think I should start with like the verbiage and the marketing materials that I want to use, hype it up a little bit to where I have some kind of attention to the community, and then like decide on a day and have a meeting just to start it out with like um I don't know, what can we do about this as a community.
Hey Max, if
Yeah.
if you do the library and I know you have to put down dollars to reserve a room, I mean count me in. So come to me and
All right.
I'll help you cover that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that's what
Absolutely.
I'm saying. Like,
No,
that's
I
one of
mean
the barriers. The other thing is like,
like
not
20
having
bucks, right? I
confidence
mean
that
I
people
can
are going to
do
come.
that.
So that's another thing, is kind of like trying to anticipate when would be a good time, when like, and how to kind of get people to where they actually feel like it's going to be a not a waste of their time. That's the other thing, is like, because if you've gone to a city council meeting, it is pretty much, if you want, unless you're just putting your voice on the record and that's your point to do, which is fair enough. There's not much going on that is like worth your time. So
Well,
I
and
don't know. I think
Betsy,
we could do something that is worth. And if we're talking about some real shit, and then I don't know, try to figure out buying power and stuff, and like, yeah, and really trying to make sure people know the extremities of this, because like it's not obvious to everyone who's in their daily routine and constantly, distracted by their own little, life troubles or whatever, to like see the bigger picture group. Whoa, okay. Now there's this mill that closed down and it kind of sounds like the same shit going on with Bigfoot. Okay, that's even worse. Come on, are you guys still anti-union? Like, what the fuck is that? There's a lot of
yeah.
people that are working class, people that don't get it. I think there's still people that are like, think it's cool to be anti-union or whatever. And I don't know. I never like took a stand on any of that shit. It's like, duh, unions are fucking obviously. What the hell are you gonna do with your, labor when the boss says fuck it, like we don't need these people or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta do something, and have like some kind of safeguards so that people aren't just completely displaced and destroyed in their life
Yeah.
and families,
Absolutely.
especially families. And so that's where I'm saying, like, and with because Ward 4 doesn't even cover like the commercial neighborhood. From what I found out, I'm like, why the hell is that? That whole neighborhood is part of this whole neighborhood, part of the whole area. So what we
Actually,
should do is get,
Ward 4 does have all of downtown Roseburg. It
yeah, but
goes
not the
from
commercial.
south of Diamond Lake, oh yes, all
Really?
the way out to
Oh, okay.
yes.
Okay,
The
so I was
city's
looking at a
the
map.
city's divided into four wards, and all of them have a business area in them.
I'm
Probably the one on the other side of the freeway, actually, 3 is probably less so than the others.
well, and the
But
main
no,
thing.
all of the downtown business area is in Ward 4.
Well, but the
All of
commercial. I'm talking about the commercial neighborhood, commercial street in that area, the old Jackson Street on the other side
all
of Diamond Lake Boulevard. That's what I'm
Oh,
talking
that
about.
because
The
that's
commercial,
Ward 1 or whatever the
right?
ward. That's
Ward
another
three.
ward.
Reason
No,
it's a
sorry, Ward
different.
one. Yeah, yeah, Ward one.
Which I mean, to me, I want to include the whole actual, whoever even,
But you
anybody. So
can. You don't have to
that's what I'm saying.
divide it into wards. You don't have to give a
That's what I'm
shit
saying.
where they are.
Yeah.
You just
Right.
find everybody in the city of Roseburg,
Yeah, yeah.
But if you want a community meeting that's more, that's smaller, it's just more natural because there's already a ward. We're also a total precinct, which is a subdivision of the state for voting purposes. We're precinct
Right.
22.
Okay.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's a natural kind of way to group it, but you don't have
Yeah.
to.
No,
you
good point.
know
And
I,
I don't know why I even got on that tangent. It's just maybe
No,
when I was
that's
looking at it, I was confused.
A
But
ward
like,
is
that's totally
finish what I was
fine.
saying, if I
That's
can.
totally fine.
Okay.
I have a question. Do you think if we had a meeting at the library for the downtown Roseburg folks and we wanted it to be union based, but we also wanted to give out like socks and ponchos and hand warmers? I mean,
Yeah.
I
Every time we should do that. Yeah. All the time.
right. Like
But
I think that would be
so yeah, and
that would
that's
be
another
helpful,
thing.
right? Like
So
we want to invite folks who are housing insecure or
For sure.
whatever into our spaces. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's important to bring those people into our spaces. So
I just want to
Mhm.
caution people about what dilutes the activism.
Yeah.
Why there's one person running community rights, and there's, been until recently one person running housing for some five or six people running the Democratic Party, some of whom are involved in housing for some aka me.
yeah,
Okay, the problem is you keep creating these other organizations and you
right.
start diluting this. We only have so many dollars in a small rural community. We only have so many people, and we have far less activism than we have of activists than we do anywhere else, or
Gotcha.
even the potential pool. So I think that all these things are great, but I think you need to look at infrastructures that already exist to feed into. Community rights may be the right place, Max, for you to do this kind of conversation. But also, I did mention to you, and I think I mentioned on this program last week about Councilwoman in Ward 4, which is also Precinct 22, Ruth Smith, who was the founder, she and her husband, of Service, which was the neighborhood association that they founded prior to her becoming a city council person. And the Neighborhood Watch actually that she wants to revitalize that neighborhood association. Personally, I'm going to support that effort. So if, because I think that has the biggest potential to be able to draw people in. Honestly, I
Yeah.
am not real positive that having a conversation like unions is going to bring in a mass amount of anybody. Okay.
No. No, no,
Or even the problem, I think that has to be a targeted kind of thing,
yeah.
and if you want to have conversations about labor, do all that kind of stuff. But we are getting, close to, wrapping up here. I think that the other thing, is there anything else about this discussion? I do want to mention there was a great book that came out in the pandemic, and it was something, let me see, When the World Quit Buying, that was put out and looked at an analysis about a year into when the pandemic hit and we had quit buying wide, right? The day the world stopped shopping, how ending consumerism saves the environment and ourselves. I think if you haven't read it, I'm gonna, I read it when it came up because it was a pandemic and there was nothing else to do. But I love the book. I think the guy made a real good analysis, and we were in that circumstance, so we could talk about what would happen. But I think this is in the line of what Zach was talking about. This is not just saying don't buy this and buy this instead. It's saying don't buy any of it. How does this
Right.
consumerism impact us? And I think this also really is in line with the discussions about the commons, right? This is really, how
Yeah.
does this consumerism impact all these other aspects of, what we provide as in the way of housing, right? And I
Yeah.
don't think it's I'm not saying, I don't believe it's an easy task to get Americans to quit buying shit. That's what
But
our identity is,
it's
buying
important.
shit.
It's it's freaking necessary. Yeah.
It was necessary not to allow it to happen, but here we are.
Well,
Yeah.
I do want to insert a point on the the understanding of the supposed decline of buying of consumerism in 2020 and 2021. That period also saw uh, the largest extraction of money across the globe and siphoning into the hands of a handful of billionaires, some of whom are approaching the trillions. Larry Ellison is up there.
Yeah.
That was the greatest wealth transfer in documented history. And so if we are going to say that was a period of certain benefits for lack of consumption. I haven't read the book you brought up, Betsy, but uh, from a superficial understanding of what the book is about, I would just like to acknowledge the fact that just not consuming or consuming differently is not escaping the encroachment of capital into new areas of life.
Yeah,
In just the
Right,
last
right.
5 years, say the
yeah,
so-called AI sphere activity, which has popped up data centers that are sucking up
yeah,
fresh water and electricity, jacking
yeah,
up all of our power bills.
yeah,
That that has happened in the midst of this, and
yeah.
this changing our buying habits did not thwart that at all. We're in worse conditions.
Oh, but
Um,
but but it, there was a pandemic, right? There was a shift in what
Yeah,
the world economy bought, what they
absolutely.
secured for those capitalists, right? Because of the
Yeah,
economics going on. So yes, you're right. It's not in a vacuum of it was an ideal world and it could happen, but I think the
yeah.
consumerism of those things that weren't heavily subsidized by the government at that point, right? Showed some good impacts on the world in regard to environment and other aspect. But I
I mean,
I I agree with
there
you.
were places in India that had clear skies that could see mountains that hadn't been able to, and I can look up the data for you, but there were places in India that were able to see the skies of or see the mountaintops of a mountain range for the first time in 20 or 30 years during the pandemic because everything was shut down. I mean, that
but
was real.
but
I can find that. I mean, that's
that
no
does
small thing though. That's
that's
no
not to
small
do with
thing,
that's not merely to do with consumption. That is certain forms of the labor chain being interrupted. That's
which
labor being
has to
interrupted
do
in
with
trade.
consumption, which has to do with consumption.
You can't consume what is not being produced.
And you can't produce what's not being consumed.
Yeah, you can. That's how capital works. Producing things that people are then convinced that they
Are
need.
not consuming, that's a losing endeavor, my friend.
No, it's been the case throughout the 20th century and today. That is the basis of Edward Bernays' argument for propaganda.
Oh,
But okay, you
I
have
was
me
going to
there.
get the,
You
the
have me there.
development of social psychology in the 1920s. Oh my God. It was all about convincing us all the shit we need to buy. And we are still controlled by it to this day.
But
It's
Betsy, I would say like brought up a really good point about AI and how it consumes resources and how
yeah.
it transforms to a terrible effect communities, how it terribly affects communities. So that might be a good topic for another edition is AI and these insane plants or AI centers that are sucking up all this water and resources, and then local communities like in the Dalles where we've had for not even for AI but just for data storage. I mean, we can look at our own state and find example after example, but I think that would be a good topic for a future episode.
Well, on top of that, uh, in a little show that Bernie Sanders had the other day, he said that within 20 years, AI will eliminate 100 million jobs.
Absolutely, absolutely it will.
So,
Absolutely, it will.
so that's another big, yeah.
Yep.
It's contested. There are speculations that the so-called AI bubble is about to burst, and that is in part due to the fact that large language models, transformers like GPT, developed by OpenAI, are at this point training more on their own slop than uh, human-created material. Um, there's
But
also the element in it.
when have humans not consumed slop? We
Well,
we
I
are
would
the
not I
one,
would not take the consuming of slop as an historical given. I think you could say that about the mid 20th century forward, especially, but
yes,
where
absolutely.
humans
That's true.
humans are better than just what we currently are.
It
or
was too
well, what
expensive.
our
It
current
was too
economy.
expensive. It was too expensive to share slop. So you're absolutely right. I mean, until there was a printing press for one, you know,
Yes,
there's a lot of
that's
barriers to
good
sharing
points,
knowledge,
guys.
whether it was slop
Good,
or not. Um,
good
but
point.
if anybody knows enough about the AI discussion, because I think there's other kind of, the progress of human evolution and what we spend our time to is also a conversation that AI is about, right? And does it benefit us in any way? I use AI, and I always have to get over the guilt of the environmental impact it has, but believe me, I tend to get over it. And so
Yeah, because it
I
because it can be incredibly useful.
of
So
course, that's the
so it's
reason, right? But I think with
absolutely.
these big slop that you're talking about, Zach, what I have noticed even in the evolution of me using it is it seems to make a lot more errors because of the evolution of their own slop integrating stuff, right? That has no connection. And so it's become less reliable even in 6 months,
Yeah.
for me to use.
Yeah.
And if I have to edit it, at a certain point, I might as well just write the whole damn thing. Right. So
Yeah.
um, but I do think it's a very interesting conversation because there are a lot of, topics at play in here. So the other thing I had on the list, I think that we've covered everything, and I even put down your Frog Lake zine, Max. And so,
Yay, Max.
If
so
I might, for
yeah,
Max, we were talking about wards a bit earlier. I think I'd like to add that uh, that I'll put my historian hat on. In the French Revolution, the basis of the revolutionary forms of organization were the sections of Paris, or equivalents of our wards, and the meetings of people who came together for section assemblies were sometimes, only 10 people, sometimes less. But that still was a very radical form. And so I would not discount a group that forms as a kind of neighborhood committee, neighborhood assembly that starts with just a handful of people. I would also say that build it and people come. If you create the space for people to come to, people will come to it. It won't be just who you expect, and it might require invitation, but having the space established, even if you're just figuring it out and don't have a clear plan, that's a great starting point. And you can create your own neighborhood boundaries that don't, ascribe to the ward, as Betsy said as well. The wards exist as a legitimate form for voting with respect to the city council. That's where they're really relevant. So if you're trying to work with like Ruth Smith or Zach Weiss on the city council, then that makes some sense. But also, my suggestion for anyone thinking of building uh, what might be called a council or an assembly, I would lean toward an assembly, um, is your city councilors who are involved can do one of two things. They can spearhead it, or they can participate in it as just a neighbor and citizen like anyone else. It could be organized on that hierarchical basis, which puts the eggs in the basket of city councilors, and thus the city council, or more horizontally, um, which would be uh, involving city councilors only insofar as they're providing it legitimacy. And that's what I think what they're most useful for. If you're putting together some kind of political forum on the neighborhood level, having a counselor like Ruth Smith in, it's great. Be a member. But the position of being a city councilor is the thing that provides those forms long-term legitimacy, so
Mhm.
that discussions and decisions that you make are then understood as being in relation to the governance, the discussions at the
Right.
city council.
It's a
But
lot more relevant.
beware of being beholden to it.
Right.
Don't
Right.
want to be beholden to
Yeah.
it.
No, and that's exactly where I'm trying to go with this. I just announced on Facebook the other week that I'm running for mayor.
Yay!
And
Woohoo!
I mean, I don't know. It just seems kind of ridiculous enough to just say it. And because I don't think that means the same thing to me as it does to people that might be seriously in a position to run for mayor. So to me, I feel as if I'm a little bit not beholden to kind of what you're talking about as far as being involved it already and already being compromised about it. But I thought it was interesting. Somebody commented on it saying, "Hey, that's funny. I'm running for mayor too." And I thought, "Hey, that's funny. I never heard about that. Have you announced it, or is this your first time saying anything about it?" Anyway, that aside, I think somebody is likely to emerge as somebody who would want to oppose if I was to gain any traction, which I'm not trying to be about, myself trying to win this. I would be more about, starting a council meeting saying, "Hey, look, I'm running for mayor." People should show up and try to, hey, I'm a puppet, basically. Come at me with
No,
whatever
you're
you.
the
No, what I'm
opposite
saying
of a
is, listen, what
puppet.
I'm saying is, if I was the mayor, it wouldn't just fix things necessarily, but it would be good to have more. It would have somebody that's facilitating discussion and collaboration and stuff, rather than because I've already got ideas for like, how I'd respond to stuff that, I think the mayor isn't going to do shit. He's just going to kind of ignore stuff, which he does. So that's why I think it's definitely time, if not a long time ago, for somebody to say, "Hey, like, write, write me in," or whatever I got to do to like get a mayor committee. I don't have any fucking money. I'm not trying to put any money into running as a race to try to win a mayorship, but I would want to like do it as a public stunt, kind of,
Yeah.
because anyway.
Well, the write-in campaign is a
Yeah,
fine thing to do.
right.
But with all with all of the beef that my colleagues at the Institute for Social Ecology have with Bernie Sanders, many of whom fought him when he was mayor back in the 80s as part of Burlington Greens. Uh, Bernie Sanders' presidential campaigns should be understood as first and foremost education campaigns. That the purpose of them was not solely to get into office. That there's a pipe dream. Um, but what it did do was provide a totally new lens for many people who weren't thinking in such a lens otherwise to better understand the world that they're in and the crises that they face and where to start. So even a mayoral campaign, even a write-in mayoral campaign could essentially be that.
Absolutely.
What are you looking to educate your neighbors about with such a campaign? It's like a kind of theater,
Yeah,
political theater.
exactly. And that's what I
Yes,
would want
yes.
to, the first and
Yeah.
foremost is to educate the neighbors about how we can have a discussion, that isn't like beholden to this, even it doesn't even have to be in the council chambers or whatever. It can be ourselves as a community having our own, narrative. And so, yeah, that's what it would be about. And just to see what it's like to, see if we can put somebody up there as a possible replacement for the current mayor. I don't know.
And
Well,
Go ahead.
Max, I think
I'm currently the candidate recruitment and chairperson, which really means a person of one, a committee one or two, in the Democratic Party. But I've been doing candidate, support in Canada. I was a paid campaign manager in my 20s in a much bigger city than the county of Douglas is. And I'm going to tell you that in here, I always tell people run for office because it gives you a platform to express ideas. It
yeah.
doesn't mean you're going to win. And in particularly if you're a Democrat, because there's twice as many registered Republicans as Democrats, twice as many non-affiliated voters as Democrats. And so it really is a huge uphill battle in Douglas County for a Democrat to win anything. And as opposed to in local office of any kind, even in nonpartisan races. Although at some point in its history, not now, the city of Roseburg has had a majority of people who are registered Democrats who were on their city council. Since the time I've lived here, when I first moved here, that was in 2012, moved back to the city of Roseburg itself, that was the case. It's not right now, but they're nonpartisan offices. And for one, you wouldn't want to run a write-in campaign. You want to be a regular campaign. It's city council getting on the ballot. You can pay a fee, get on the ballot, or you get so many signatures, I think, with the city, you have to do that. And so it's an easy thing to actually get on the ballot. You want your name on the ballot because if you're doing a public relations thing, which is really all you're doing is, talking about issues and concerns without the hopes of winning, although your biggest chance of being able to win any race in Douglas County is here in Roseburg. Okay, is it no matter what your political affiliation, because it is nonpartisan, it's very short-lived, and if you pick up the right issues and say the right things, it doesn't take that many votes to get your ass elected in the city of Roseburg, even for the statewide mayor's effort. So I would run like you're serious, but I wouldn't be crying and, crying if you lost, because that's really what you can expect. Yes, but it gives you that platform because the News Review is going to give you a platform you would not necessarily otherwise have if they're covering the election. So, with anything. And so, any of you who are out there who want to run in partisan races for the Douglas County area, which is House District 2 against Virgil Osborne, give me a call. Because you have to
Well,
actually be a Democrat, and you have to have already been a Democrat in order to actually not have to do a write-in campaign for the May primary. But it's
but
all of the House districts. That's the one Scarlatos. But I will tell you, the reality is you're going to lose by 2-1 if you take those races, if you win even the Democratic primary.
yeah,
But again, you'll have the opportunity to be a voice. There'll be a way to expand your ideas and platform.
yeah,
And it doesn't really cost you that much money to run that kind of
no,
campaign, because you're not going to raise enough money in Douglas County alone to win any race in Douglas County if you're a Democrat, because you would
yeah,
need to probably $100,000, and you ain't
yeah,
going to get that out of this community. That hasn't been my experience. I haven't seen that kind of
no.
money come in
But
Democratic's
Max,
way.
Max, I would say it's Max, I would say it's all upside for you. Because you have your own space. You could have weekly in session ask me anything
Right.
sessions where
Yeah.
you would have people come in and they could ask you anything. I mean, you have a space. You're obviously an actual community member who has a presence in the community, and you are doing things to help feed the community, to help clothe the community. You are doing things. I don't think you should take it as a joke. I mean, I think you should go for it.
Well, I think the
And
main thing is, yeah, getting the dialogue going and getting it to where, uh, you know, people think a little more about the mayor's role and what the mayor could be doing differently and what we all
why shouldn't the mayor be you? I
right,
mean,
right, right,
seriously,
right,
seriously.
exactly. Well, and I mean, I don't know what the hell the deal is with that. You probably get a lot of bribes and shit. Like you just
Yeah.
already
You don't
making
get
train.
bribes. Oh, please. Okay, that's
No,
enough. Now we're going to go on
okay.
to where's your next zine coming out? And
No,
then we're
no,
going to
no,
close the
that's it.
show. All
All right.
right,
Okay.
that's enough. All right.
Okay.
So,
Or
keep
like,
your conspiracy, keep
okay,
the
yeah.
conspiracy to the frog leg zine. Okay.
No, I don't know. So that's the main thing is to try to challenge my assumptions about it because my assumption is there's no chance and it's not going to work and nothing is going to make a difference. But I'm trying to challenge that assumption, do something, and especially with the discussion because I see the mayor's role as apparently possible to you know facilitate more collaboration, more information sharing and discussion, and people getting on the
Good.
page about stuff. And I think I like doing stuff like that, and I want to figure it out anyway, and like get more involved. And like you said, have a platform. And I'd like to do, invite people to my Friday open studio thing to hang out and talk about this stuff. and the food not
That's a great place to start it because you're already doing it.
Yeah,
Don't do anything that you have to exercise a whole lot of energy and then worry about who's going to show up. You're already doing something. That's a good venue to do that. So when's that next zine coming out? And you need some people to submit articles. I saw that you were looking for that.
yeah. We need yeah. I don't have much ready yet, but we're getting started on it and putting it together for the fall. It's gonna be the fall issue. It's gonna address my mayoral campaign or whatever, and some other things that are going on.
Yeah, and
I don't really
I would
know, the
So
zines that we got and stuff.
what kind of articles do you want? What are you looking for? People
Just
to submit
anything,
what kind of thing?
anything interesting, like anything at all, really. I'm really kind of just wanting to see what we can do here, hot takes on Roseburg, whatever, like
the
locally related
unions,
or not.
the
It doesn't,
union situation,
huh?
the
Yeah,
union
yeah.
situation.
And see, that's the thing. We need to, and that's what any kind of the editorial board of Frog Lake Studio Zine uh, is tasked with, figuring out what are the basic things that we should actually cover. That's one of them. And, in the zine about what if we're going to make anything relevant in Roseburg,
Yeah.
about
So maybe Melissa wants to do something about the Teamsters and the Bigfoot. I won't
Yes.
put you don't have to answer.
Yeah, if you want to write
You
something up,
can connect with him,
um,
so
I get
I'm
overwhelmed,
gonna write
I
up
think about
that
it.
we ran the carpetbagger off.
Right. Yeah.
That was the first one I wrote. So, we were able to get him away. Actually we had very little to do with it, but why not take credit for somebody else's work? Or whatever the
And so,
circumstances of it.
um,
So
I was hoping to have it, before Halloween, but like, since it is the kind of the fall issue, I think I would want it to be like dealing with the more macabre elements of what we're seeing or what we have or whatnot, or maybe with a theme like
homeless
that.
Memorial Day. Homeless Memorial Day,
Uh-huh.
celebrates, it's the longest day. It actually is the first day of winter.
Right. We'll have to put a flag. Yeah.
But
So
if you want to talk about macabre, the reality of how many people die on the streets on drugs
yeah.
right
Right.
now.
Oh, geez.
Totally. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It takes more than just, I don't know. I can kind of start doing it, but I'll just have a bunch of. It's cool to have it be kind of a collective effort. So I appreciate.
Yeah.
I think Zach already sent me. That's cool. Thanks,
Oh
Zach.
yes,
All
you
right.
got to do it. Yes, I've sent one in. Yes, the excerpt from text by Peter Fireman of the New Odessa community, who was a longtime supporter of the communist parties in the United States. He helped fund the Daily Worker in Chicago for a while. He was a funder for a publication called The New Freeman, which was kind of a libertarian socialist
That's so cool that it
publication.
comes from the Odessa community that you've been researching. That's amazing.
Yeah, the text that I've sent to Max for the newsletter, the zine, is on Peter Fireman's discussion of justice, which does get into unions.
Cool.
Good.
I'm excited to read it.
All right. Anything else we
Yes.
need before we go? Hey, John,
Yes.
what are you guys going to be doing? Aren't you having an event, community rights?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know how to sign up for this newsletter.
Yes, me too.
You just email froglegart@gmail.com.
Okay.
I would like to subscribe. Please send it, then give me a place to send it, digital or if you want a physical copy sent to your house
No,
or whatever address.
I'll do digital. Okay. And the other thing is we're having a presentation this Saturday, the 25th, at the South Umpqua Room in the library from 11:30 to 12:30. It's going to be with Chris Hall from Water League, sorry. And he's going to be talking about the water crisis in Harney Basin and how it relates to really any other community. And in Oregon, it's an issue that's just going to get worse and worse. So I hope some of you can make it. It's also going to be on Zoom, and I'll be sending the link out for it on Zoom. But Chris is a very intelligent guy. So, and he has a lot of slides. He usually does a really good presentation. So, if he,
John,
yes,
is that going to be recorded? Do you
yes,
know?
yes,
Okay.
he he brings everything. So, but
Awesome.
but hopefully, if any, hopefully some of you can attend. So,
Absolutely.
okay. So anyway, that's what's happening with us for now. And when I get more information from Julian, we'll let you know about the fundraising thing.
So I don't know. I think I mentioned last week there were they had that event. The news review was at the League of Women Voters talking about the First Amendment. That is actually up on the League of Women Voters. The video of that event is up there. And it has the editor and then a reporter whose name I've forgotten. They're discussing the issue of the news review, how they make decisions. I find it a very interesting discussion. You might too. I'm not sure that I would agree that good journalism does some of the things they do.
Yeah.
Um, but it's an interesting dialogue, and actually, it was in replacement of they had set aside time for the Winchester Dam, someone from the Winchester Dam to counter what the Water Watch presentation had said about the dam, but then the Winchester Dam folks backed out from the league with some, and that their excuse or part of it is up on the League of Women Voters as well. And it's too bad because I would have actually probably attended their presentation about why they say it's okay to have the Winchester Dam. Anybody else have any announcements, any upcoming events, anything else?
Oh, Indivisible is having a picnic a week from today at River Run Park. Does that make sense to anybody?
River
River
Forks?
Forks.
River Forks, yes, thank you. River Forks Park from noon to 4 a week from today. So anybody wants to come out, hang out, if you are going to be running for mayor and you want to recruit people, wink wink, come out to our Indivisible picnic and introduce yourself to folks. I bet there will be a lot of folks who will be very interested in hearing what you, Max, have to say. Um, so think about coming out to the Indivisible picnic next Sunday from noon to 4.
Anybody else have anything?
On the 23rd, we're having a show. Frog Leg. New low. Anyway, it's gonna be good.
Cool.
You mean it's a music show? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
what time?
At like 6 o'clock, 6 to 8, or maybe goes till
At the studio?
yeah.
And that's what, Thursday?
That's is it a Thursday? Yeah, I think so. I didn't even it's coming up soon.
What day
But
did you
yeah,
say? The 23rd? Yeah, the 23rd
yeah.
is Thursday.
So and
All
we haven't
right.
done that in a while. But yeah, and stay tuned for city, neighborhood council meeting. Anyway,
Yay.
All right.
have a good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy.